Alright, the green light's on. There's some background noise. I have my brownies. I shouldn't cover the air vents, so I'm just going to set that there for now. This thing is nothing more than a power supply connected to a Peltier chip, which makes one side extremely cold and one side extremely hot. A fan to exhaust that hot air, and then this surface deep freezes because that Peltier chip cold side is right underneath it. So that's it. It's really just a couple of components. Probably make your own for, I don't know, 20 bucks, and some time soldering wires. Long story short, this thing's awesome. I love it. Doesn't take long to cool down. Green light's on. It's going to start collecting and condensing and crystallizing the humidity in the air, as well as any other junk that I accidentally left on there, like there's a little ring over here on the side. But for the most part, it looks clean because it's crystallizing evenly. So I made my mixture earlier. It's not a lot. After it's settled, it's about, if I hold it flush, about half of a pizza sauce jar. But it has some viscosity to it. It's creeping up the sides like it sticks. So it is kind of like a basic pudding mixture. I'm just going to shake that up really quick. You can kind of see the flashing probably down here on the steel. So I'm just going to shake it up just to mix it really quickly. I don't want to introduce air, but I do want to give it a stir so that it maintains that density. And I guess I should get my paddles ready. That's my next step. I'm going to give them a quick hot water rinse. That way the hot water rinse gives them a little bit more, well, first and foremost, cleanliness, I suppose. Secondarily, it'll be easier to slice into and carve with. Also acts as kind of a lubrication barrier, so the material doesn't stick to the sporks. So my pour is probably bad here, but I'm just going to pour some of this out. I'm probably not going to use all of it because, again, I used about half. So that feels like maybe a quarter, no, maybe a third of a cup. So that's a third of a cup on, forgive the sheen and the shine of the grow lights on the plant life over there, my herb garden. I'm going to let this sit for a second. And from what I gather, as soon as it starts slowing down, like it stops expanding, that's when you really want to go at it. And you want to always work inward in some sort of a pattern. And it's kind of a scooping, scraping, flipping, churning motion. So it's this kind of a swimming, like a breaststroke kind of an action that really works. You always want to scrape these, and you always want to break that up. You always want to scrape it back in, basically making this little collection in the center. The stuff that goes to the edges really does freeze rapidly, like frozen solids. So bringing that back in, those little frozen chocolate bits back into the fold, still allows it to cool and solidify in this scraping motion. So always bringing it back seems to be the trick. These schmears, you want to catch them before you can't leave them out there too long because they will freeze rock solid very rapidly. And then the clicking is scraping of the spatulas because the mixture wants to stick to it, like a fudge or a tar. That's literally it. So I'm making a kind of a gelato, less air. I'm not trying to chop it to death and add air. I'm just trying to get it to solidify. It's now turning into this, mortar or sludgy consistency. So I'm just going to take it over the top by spreading it as thin as I can. Evenly as I can, I suppose, is a big key, so you don't have lumps, frozen icicles and stuff And then you just go right back to town, scraping. Again, that same thing, bringing it back to center. But it freezes much faster, obviously. You can see it rolling already when you spread it thin like that. So I'm just going to start cleaning the edges. I think this is actually quite done. I'll flip it over, give that side a little bit of thought here. But this should make a very interesting, very thick and creamy. Not a lot of air except for what I just folded in there. Messing with it, but I can compress it using these as well. Turn it into a chocolate bar almost. That's kind of fun. The trick is, just like a kind of a flame grill, you don't want to let it burn. In this case, you don't want to let it freeze it too hard. So it's kind of all about agitation. And I'm trying not to introduce air into this mixture, but it's really hard, even when folding, not to. So I do see air pockets forming. And I see chunks forming as well because of this excessive frozen. But I think that's good. I think I'm done right there with that. I'm going to stick that in the bowl. It looks like a giant turd, but it's going to taste amazing. Even that little flop looks like it's going to be yum. So I'm going to put that in a bowl. I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to eat that. I didn't even have an opportunity to stick the brownies in there. I was just going on full speed, so it's just straight chocolate ice cream. I'll put the lid on the brownies, and maybe that'll be tomorrow.